Hopefully I can meet Syko Stu and shake his hand and have a man to man with him and stuff like that. But who knows? But y'all, the people that know me, y'all know me. Y'all know I got mad love for everybody. And
It was never supposed to spiral this way. The son of a UFC legend, a kid desperate to step out of his father's massive shadow, is now sitting in a courtroom, not as a star, not as a fighter, but as a broken defendant begging for mercy. Raja Jackson, who once flaunted his name for clout, crumbled in front of the judge, tears running down his face, pleading for forgiveness like his whole world was slipping away. This wasn't some minor slip-up. It was a full-blown collapse. After Syko Stu's lawsuit landed like a knockout straight to the jaw, Raja had no fight left in him. Cameras caught the raw humiliation, trembling hands, shaky voice, and a confession nobody thought they'd hear. He admitted his reckless moves in a small-time wrestling ring didn't just cause drama, they destroyed a man's future, leaving Syko Stu permanently disabled. The cocky swagger that used to fuel Raja was gone, replaced by a shattered young man who could barely hold himself together. But tears don't erase the truth. This wasn't just about Raja's breakdown. It was about justice. Syko Stu, a wrestler and military veteran who gave everything to the ring, wasn't letting crocodile tears change the story. His lawsuit wasn't clout chasing, and it wasn't revenge. It was about making Raja face the weight of what he had done. And hovering over all of this chaos was Rampage Jackson himself. The father who once mocked his own son on live streams, now forced to watch his legacy get dragged into the mud. A UFC legend's name suddenly tied to courtroom drama and humiliation. Raja's meltdown may have stolen headlines, but the bigger question still hangs heavy. Will anyone actually forgive him? Or did this courtroom breakdown just hammer the final nail into the coffin of the Jackson legacy? Raja Jackson was born into a name that carried power, but for him, it was a curse he could never shake. His father, Quentin Rampage Jackson, was a UFC legend, known for body slams that shook arenas and a personality so loud it could light up an entire city. But while fans cheered Rampage, Raja was trapped in that giant shadow. Every stumble looked like failure. Every small loss felt 10 times worse because the world expected him to be just like his father. He tried MMA, but got exposed quick. The ground that made his dad a legend became the same ground that swallowed him up. He switched lanes to streaming, but trolls tore him apart, clowning him as soft, saying he'd never live up to the Jackson name. And the worst part? It wasn't just strangers piling on. Rampage himself would get on camera, laughing at his own son, roasting him in front of thousands. What should have been mentorship turned into humiliation, live for everyone to see. Piece by piece, that broke him down. Behind the tough talk and bravado was a young man desperate for his father's respect, desperate for validation he never got. Every live stream felt like a fight, not with opponents in the cage, but with the voices telling him he'd never be enough. And now, in that courtroom, all that pain finally spilled out. Raja broke down, admitting through tears he had spent his whole life trying to prove he wasn't weak. His apology wasn't just about one violent night. It was years of rage, shame, and humiliation bursting out all at once. But for Syko Stu, those words weren't redemption. They were just noise from the man who changed his life forever.
he went to a pro wrestling event with his coach. Those pro wrestlers, they be just as crazy as MMA guys, right? The pro wrestling guy don't know my son, and he hit him over the head with like a can or a beer can or a bottle or something.
Dog gotta go to prison. I usually don't like to involve myself in other men's situations, but I feel I'm qualified to speak on this. And dog messed up. And if it's Rampage, I love Rampage. But Rampage, turn your son in.
When we're in the ring and I'm breaking it up and he shoots a double leg on me, by the way, work a better double leg, you prick. And then I'm telling you to calm down. I'm not even fighting. I'm not even being hostile. Then you're trying to work and get lower, do this, change positions, and I'm over here having to swim with you, all this other shit. And then you punch me in the eye. After we're breaking it up, you lose.
The courtroom replayed the night like a horror film stuck on loop. Knox Pro Wrestling Academy, supposed to be a safe stage where young wrestlers sharpen their skills, turned into the scene of pure chaos. What started as fun and performance quickly spiraled into a nightmare that no one could ever forget. It began with something harmless. Syko Stu tapped Raja on the head with a prop beer can, a lighthearted gag that wrestling fans know as part of the show. But for Raja, already drowning in pressure and humiliation, that tiny joke lit the fuse. On his live stream, he snapped, swearing it wouldn't stay scripted. He promised retaliation, calling it real this time, telling viewers he'd prove once and for all he wasn't a clown. The comments poured in, viewers laughing, mocking, daring him to go further. And instead of pulling his son back from the edge, Rampage himself jumped in from his own stream, tossing cruel remarks that cut deeper than any heckler. That pushed Raja past the point of no return. He stormed into the ring mid-match like a man possessed. Without hesitation, he scooped Stu up and slammed him down with violent force that belonged in an MMA cage, not a small wrestling academy. Then it got even uglier. Raja unleashed a flurry of 20, maybe 30 brutal blows, leaving Stu unconscious and bleeding on the mat. His mother's screams echoed through the arena as she watched in horror, begging for it to stop. Now in court, as those clips played for the jury, Raja broke down sobbing, admitting he completely lost control, that the trolls, the ridicule, the humiliation had all consumed him. But Stu's lawyers cut through those tears like a blade, pointing out this wasn't some accident. It was premeditated rage. When Syko Stu finally took the stand, the room fell into dead silence. Once celebrated in the indie wrestling scene for his toughness, now he sat broken, permanently disabled, fighting a daily war with his body and his spirit. His testimony didn't need theatrics. It was raw, painful, and unforgettable. He described the betrayal of that night in chilling detail. The trust he once had in the ring was shattered forever. The sight of his own mother screaming from the front row while he lay bleeding on the mat. The humiliation of being pinned unconscious while the show kept rolling like his life meant nothing. His voice cracked as he spoke, but every word cut like a blade. Syko Stu made it clear. Raja hadn't just attacked him, he had stolen his future. Raja broke down listening, shaking his head, wiping tears, whispering apology after apology. He begged Stu to believe him, saying he never meant to destroy a man's life, that it was anger and pride taking over, not malice. But Stu didn't budge. His face was stone cold as he told the court this lawsuit wasn't revenge, it was accountability. Stu laid it bare. He lost his career, his health, and his peace of mind in one reckless moment. No amount of sorry could give that back. And when Raja begged for mercy, Stu delivered the final blow. Mercy was something he could never afford to give. The wrestling community exploded after his testimony. Veterans lined up to drag Raja's name through the mud, blasting his actions as a betrayal of everything wrestling stood for. They didn't just attack Raja. They tore into Knox Pro Wrestling too, condemning the circus-like decision to keep the show going, pinning an unconscious man while blood stained the ring. One veteran said it flat out. That wasn't wrestling. That was exploitation. And from the MMA world, the backlash hit just as hard. Fighters like Kevin Lee and Sean Strickland publicly called Raja a disgrace, saying he proved he never belonged anywhere near combat sports. Fans joined in, flooding Twitter and Instagram with hashtags like #JusticeForStu, turning Syko Stu into more than just an indie wrestler. He became a symbol of accountability, a rallying cry against crossing the line between performance and criminal assault. He was a man standing up against reckless violence, and the whole world saw it that way. Meanwhile, Raja sat in that courtroom weeping, saying he never wanted to be hated, that all he ever wanted was to prove himself. But to the community watching, those weren't tears of redemption. They looked like the last cries of desperation. Forgiveness wasn't coming. And hanging over every word was the ghost of Rampage Jackson. Fans dug deep and resurfaced years of ugly clips. Rampage choking his son on live streams, clowning him over his weight, humiliating him for his diet, even joking about bail money instead of paying for tuition. What once played off as tough love now looked like cruelty. Cruelty that may have fed the fire inside Raja until it finally exploded in that ring. Those receipts came back to haunt him hard. Raja broke down, admitting straight up that most of his anger, his obsession with proving himself, all came from years of public ridicule at the hands of his own father. His tears weren't just for Syko Stu, they were for a lifetime of humiliation that never healed. The jury shifted uncomfortably as these revelations turned the spotlight from a single fight into something darker. A young man molded by neglect, mocked by the world, and left burning with rage. But sympathy only went so far. Because while Raja begged for forgiveness, the cold truth hung heavy in that courtroom. His choices left another man permanently disabled. No amount of pain from his past, no amount of broken family history could erase what happened that night.
Dumb animal, put him in a cage, straight up. Not a human, not allowed in society. Control yourself, bitch. F him. Bring that sparring partner back, tornado kick him again, animal.
The best part about that is he needs his rest and his space, and his family needs their rest and their space, and I don't want to be an extra person pushing in on time they could be spending.
The trial wasn't just about guilt, it was about the price of reckless violence. And Stu's lawyers delivered their case with precision, leaving no room for doubt. The prosecution laid it all out. The smoking gun of Raja's own live stream threats, his chilling promises that he was done playing fake and would unleash real violence. Then came the medical reports, cold and undeniable, confirming Syko Stu's permanent disability. Every page, every photo, every word hammered home the same truth. This wasn't an accident. It was deliberate. The damages they demanded were massive. Numbers so staggering, the courtroom went silent. Years of surgeries, endless rehab, the career income Stu would never see again, and the emotional toll of living with trauma that could never be erased. And that wasn't all. On top of everything, they demanded punitive damages meant to punish Raja for what they called reckless cruelty. As the amounts were read aloud, Raja completely broke down. He sobbed in front of everyone, his voice shaking as he said he had nothing left. Prison had already taken his freedom, and now this lawsuit would take his future too. He begged, pleading with Stu not to ruin him further, swearing he had already learned his lesson. But Stu wasn't swayed. For him, this wasn't about chasing a payday, it was about justice. He told the court no amount of money could restore his body, no check could bring back his health. Raja's tears may have sparked a little sympathy, but they couldn't erase the reality. Someone had to answer for a lifetime of pain. And while Raja begged for mercy, Stu lived with the slow grind of recovery, multiple surgeries, months of agonizing rehab, endless, sleepless nights. Every day reminded him of what was stolen, the career he loved, the strength he once carried with pride, and the trust he thought he had in the ring. Even in his brokenness, Syko Stu's resilience lit up that courtroom. His lawsuit was never just about himself. It was about every indie wrestler who risked their body in the ring without real protection. Stu stood as a symbol of accountability, turning his personal tragedy into a fight for dignity in combat entertainment, a fight bigger than just one man. Meanwhile, Raja's life was in free fall. His fighting career gone, wrestling, blacklisted, streaming, poisoned by shame. Even the Jackson family name, once celebrated in the fight world, was now dripping with disgrace. There he sat in court, stripped of pride, begging for mercy that almost no one was willing to give. The contrast couldn't have been sharper, one man broken but rebuilding, the other collapsing under the weight of his own mistakes. Stu's scars became evidence of survival, while Raja's tears became proof of downfall. And in that courtroom, the world silently chose a side. The fans, the fighters, the community, it was clear who they stood with. But even as lawyers battled and Raja wept, one haunting question hovered like a storm cloud. Where was Rampage Jackson in all of this? The UFC legend, once admired for his toughness, sharp tongue, and larger-than-life personality, was nowhere to be seen. And those very traits that once made him iconic now looked like failures, not strength. Clips of Rampage mocking his own son resurfaced everywhere on social media, choking him on streams, belittling him for laughs, tearing him down instead of lifting him up. Fans weren't quiet about it either. They pointed straight at those years of ridicule, claiming Rampage's brand of tough love didn't build Raja into a fighter. It broke him into pieces. In court, Raja finally admitted what had been eating him alive for years. Through a flood of tears, he confessed that most of his anger came from one thing: desperately chasing his father's approval. His breakdown wasn't just about Syko Stu, it was about a lifetime of feeling like he was never enough. But sympathy only stretched so far. The jury's job wasn't to weigh Rampage's failures, it was to hold Raja accountable. And while the world debated whether a father's shadow had shaped this tragedy, Stu sat silent. A living reminder that it wasn't Rampage's words that put him in a wheelchair. It was Raja's fists. The Jackson legacy, once celebrated as fighting royalty, now teetered on the edge of being remembered for disgrace. Rampage might not have been on trial, but his ghost loomed over every moment of testimony, impossible to ignore. As the trial reached its climax, Raja made one final attempt to claw back what little dignity he had left. Standing before the judge, voice trembling, he begged for forgiveness. He apologized not only to Stu but to his family, his father, and the fans who once believed in him. He admitted his hunger for validation, his lack of control, had burned his career, his future, and his family's name to ashes. With tears streaming down his face, he promised change, saying prison had humbled him and this lawsuit had forced him to open his eyes. The plea was raw, desperate, emotional enough to make the courtroom shift uncomfortably between pity and anger. But Stu didn't flinch. He didn't deny Raja's pain, and he didn't even deny that the apology was sincere. But he reminded the court of one unshakable truth. No words, no tears, no promises could undo the fact that his career was gone forever, and his health was permanently destroyed. He said forgiveness was between him and God, but justice was the job of the court. The silence that followed those words was deafening. Raja's courtroom breakdown may have touched a few hearts, but it couldn't erase the cold truth. His future was no longer in his own hands. The trial of Raja Jackson won't be remembered as just a wrestling story. It became a warning shot to all of combat sports and entertainment. It exposed the dangerous mix of ego, humiliation, and clout chasing in a world where blurred lines can turn performance into real-life tragedy. For Syko Stu, this wasn't revenge, it was accountability. His lawsuit made sure his pain couldn't be brushed aside, that his permanent disability wasn't reduced to a forgotten statistic. In forcing the industry to face its failures, Stu transformed his suffering into something larger. He became a symbol of resilience. But for Raja, the courtroom was the graveyard of his dreams. His tears may have screamed remorse, but they couldn't rewrite the past. His career, gone. His reputation, shattered. His family name, stained. And none of it was bad luck. It was his own reckless choices dragging him down. And looming behind it all was Rampage Jackson. A legend once celebrated for glory now had his name entangled with whispers of humiliation and failure. Years of mocking his own son, years of tough love, now cast in a different light as the backdrop to his son's downfall. When the dust settled, one truth stood above all. Fame fades, clout dies, but accountability never disappears. Raja's plea for forgiveness may echo for years to come, but history will not remember his tears. It will remember the price of his actions and the man, Syko Stu, who refused to let his pain be silenced. Love this video? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more breakdowns of the scandals rocking the world of sports and entertainment.